Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Alke Halberg. I am part of the Cohesive Marketing team. I will be assisting the team today with the webinar as moderator. We will give it another 30 to 60 seconds to allow all the attendees to join us on this call. Great, I think we can start. Hi everyone and welcome to our webinar on achieving a massive step change, embracing asset management and asset optimization. Before we start, I would just like to highlight some administrative tasks. Note that this webinar will be recorded and distributed post-webinar. All the attendees are currently set to listen-only mode, but feel free to post any questions or comments in the chat or question box. We will address these at the end of the webinar. Should you have any technical questions or problems, please log it with the GoToWebinar technical team in the form of a question mark or help section on the panel itself. Right, I will be handing over to our host in a bit, but let me do an introduction of Cohesive and our speakers first. Working across all stages of the lifecycle, Cohesive helps owner-operators embed digital ways of working that drive operational efficiency and enhance asset performance. Cohesive draws on core tech solutions to support its clients. These solutions include Bentley's Infrastructure Cloud, iTwin, and IBM Maximo, for which Cohesive is the largest implementer. Next, our speakers for today are David Armstrong, Senior Director in Advisory Services for the Americas, and Andrew Carey, our Enterprise Asset Management Director for EMEA. In this webinar, you will learn how to differentiate between asset management and asset optimization, understand the unique benefits, and discover how integrating these concepts can transform your operations. Explore the most effective asset management strategies for your organization, and find out why IBM Maximo Application Suite is a transformative tool for your operations. It will cover the key differences between asset management and asset optimization, benefits of integrated asset management, effective strategies for asset management and optimization, cutting-edge tools and technologies, and have a look into the real-world case studies. So without further ado, let's dive in and hand over to our host for today. Andrew, over to you.
Thank you, Elke, for the kind introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I wanted to start the presentation by talking about the problem statement that we're trying to solve. And that is, why is the Maximo Application Suite different from legacy systems? So let's consider this as a shifting landscape. So Verdantix is an independent research and advisory firm that acts as an essential thought leader for world-enhancing innovation. They shape markets, define the technologies of tomorrow, and future-proof businesses. And in 2024, Verdantix released their Green Quadrant for enterprise asset management software. What the research stated is that the market is shifting dramatically with technologies such as generative AI playing a key role, alongside the convergence of enterprise asset management, or EAM, asset performance management, APM, and reliability-centered maintenance, or RCM, into a single holistic offering. When we apply this to Maximo Application Suite, we see that it's made up of these three major components. So MAS, as we now refer to it, is much more than just an EAM solution. Whereas previously EAM was considered the leading solution over traditional CMMS offerings, today it's just one part of the whole offering that is now referred to as Asset Lifecycle Management, or ALM for short. So let's have a look in a bit more detail at what the Application Suite actually offers. So Maximo Application Suite is a collection of applications designed and integrated to drive unique value for asset management, performance, and reliability. Each application is designed to solve real business problems. However, whilst it is an integrated solution, clients can still choose what applications they deploy and when. So if we start on the top left with Maximo Manage, this is a fully integrated enterprise asset management application harnessing advanced analytics and Internet of Things data to help clients enhance operational availability, extend asset life cycles, and optimize overall performance. This is very much the Maximo that we know today. However, looking further afield within the suite, we'll do a quick introduction to some of the other applications. So Maximo Visual Inspection introduces visual AI models into quality inspection processes, empowering clients to detect and correct errors before they escalate into costly rework. Simultaneously, Maximo Monitor, Health, and Predict, collectively known as Asset Performance Management, integrates artificial intelligence into assets on the production floor. This powerful stack of applications enables clients to predict potential asset failures with a very high degree of accuracy, allowing them to address issues proactively and avoiding costly downtime. Maximo Mobile and Maximo Assist together bridge the gap in technical expertise, significantly improving the success rate of first-time repairs by providing technicians with on-demand resources. It's akin to having a vast library of technicians' fingertips, with the right manual always accessible at the right time, complete with critical information already highlighted for you. And then the recent addition of reliability strategies provides a dedicated reliability-centered set of features that further enhances equipment availability, reduces asset replacement frequency, lowers maintenance costs, and preemptively prevents failures, promoting more efficient and cost-effective operations. The problem statement is that without adequate planning, knowledge, and learning across the broader subject areas of asset management and asset optimization, organizations will fail to generate real value from the application suite as a whole. They will either discover that they do not move beyond Maximo Manage, highlighted in the top left, to any great degree, or attempts will be made to leverage these tools in an ineffective manner. This is a problem not just for organizations, but for also certain Maximo providers who do not yet have the agnostic knowledge and depth across these subject areas. So in order to overcome that problem statement, today we want to introduce you to two dedicated areas of knowledge. That is asset management and asset optimization. So I'm going to continue with the first aspect, which is asset management. And to begin with, we're just going to build some foundational knowledge for what we mean by this. So what do we mean when we talk about asset management, and why is this important to your upgrade? So please allow me to build some background. And I'd like to introduce the three key organizations within the asset management sphere. So starting from the left-hand side, we have ISO, or the International Organization for Standardization. ISO is a worldwide federation of national standards bodies. ISO develops and publishes international standards for various fields, ensuring quality, safety, and efficiency. ISO 55001 defines the requirements for a management system specifically for asset management, which helps organizations manage their assets much more effectively. The ISO standards are developed through technical committees that include representatives from various member bodies across the globe. Therefore, this is not a UK-centric or a European-centric way of working. It's a global solution. In the middle, we have the Global Forum on Maintenance and Asset Management, or GFMAM for short. GFMAM is an association of professional maintenance and asset management societies. It was established to promote and develop the maintenance and asset management professions by collaborating on knowledge, standards, and practices across the globe. It's a non-profit organisation, and its members include various professional bodies from around the world, such as the Asset Management Council in Australia, the European Federation of National Maintenance Societies, and the Institute of Asset Management in the UK. And then finally, the third component, we have the Institute of Asset Management itself. This is a professional body for those involved in the acquisition, operation, and care of assets, particularly critical infrastructure. The IAM provides qualifications, training, and resources to support asset management professionals. Cohesive are a corporate member of the Institute of Asset Management, as well as being endorsed assessors for ISO 55001. So how do these different organizations combine to offer the landscape that we refer to as asset management? So let's start with an actual definition then. So what is asset management? Asset management is a systematic process of developing, operating, maintaining, upgrading, and then finally disposing of assets in the most cost-effective manner, including all costs, risks, and performance attributes. In the context of ISO 55000, which is that ISO standard that covers asset management, the term asset portfolio refers to the complete range of assets that an organization manages. This includes all assets that are planned for acquisition, those that are currently in service, and those scheduled for disposal over a specific planning period. The asset portfolio can and does include both physical and digital assets. Next is the asset management system. So the system is a combination of specific interacting elements that provide direction, alignment, coordination, control, and continual improvement in the effective management of assets. In other words, it is a set of components whose combined effect will deliver performance and assurance of competent asset management practices. Now, it's worth stressing that this is not solely a software platform such as Maximo or SAP, but does include the integrated software solutions used as part of a wider system, as well as the processes, procedures, and the cultural ways of working that sit atop such solutions. Now, the asset management system is helping to support the wider, broader context of asset management, which is typically outlined by those societies such as GFMAM. The asset management layer is the landscape of asset management itself, which covers critical areas such as policy, asset management strategy, strategic planning, and asset information. The latest publications covers 40 distinct subjects across 10 subject areas. And then finally, to complete the picture, we have the actual management of the organization itself. Because we should never lose sight of the fact that the reason why we perform asset management and the reason why we have these systems in place is to ultimately deliver the strategies and objectives of the organization itself. So when we take that diagram and we apply it to those organizations, what we see is that the bodies such as GFMAM cater for that wider landscape of asset management, and the ISO standards, more specifically the suite, the 55000 suite, is the asset management system itself. And then bodies such as the Institute of Asset Management tie these things together. So if we were going to summarize asset management into really simple terms, we talk about the four fundamentals, the four pillars of asset management. So first is value. So this means that assets such as buildings, machinery, or even software should be providing benefits to the organization and its stakeholders. Think of this as getting the most out of the assets as you can. The next is alignment. This is about making sure that the way that we manage our assets matches the overall goals of the organization. For example, if the company aims to be environmentally friendly, your asset management practices should support that by using sustainable practices. A really simple example. This cannot be done without good leadership. Good leadership and a positive workplace culture are absolutely crucial to asset management. Leaders need to guide and motivate everyone involved in managing assets to ensure that they're working towards the same goals and making the best decisions. Asset management is not a single department within an organization. It should be thought of as a broad, holistic way of working, similar to health and safety practices today. And then the final pillar is assurance. This pillar is about confidence and reliability. It means having processes in place to ensure that assets will perform as expected and meet the required standards. It's like having a guarantee that everything will work as it should. That is a very, very broad, high-level 101 of asset management. At this point, we'd like to introduce a participant poll around asset management. So Elka, can you please execute that poll for me, please? Now, if people could be so kind as to review the question and respond with your answers in kind, we will look to address that towards the end of the webinar. We'll give everyone 20, 30 seconds to respond, and then we'll move on. Are you happy for us to move on, Elko?
Yeah, ending it now.
Excellent, thank you. Excellent. With that in mind, I'd like to hand over to my colleague, David, and David's going to talk us through asset optimization. David.
Hi, folks. So let's talk about asset optimization. What is it, and why do we need to be aware of it for your mass environment or your future mass environment? Next slide, please. So I'm going to introduce the asset management process, and in many ways, what we're talking about is it's no longer an IT problem, and the reason for that is the technological capability has outpaced organizational structures, and in many ways, we find that the people of the business are often working in old silos, begging for a unified process to help them through their day-to-day activities. We just saw that in the poll where we had a lack of real-time data. Often we're looking for real-time data, but we don't have a frame of reference or any systems to compare that against. So they're often just working in a vacuum, fighting the fires from real-time data. And that's not really what we would call best-in-class asset management or asset optimization. So when I go through this, I talk about a three-legged stool here. I talk about a business process, I talk about a programmatic ROI, and I talk about an assessment methodology. And it's really defining who does what, when, and where, right? And the reason why we need to understand that is there's a massive component of cultural change when we adopt these programs. So here in front of me, I'm gonna walk through a process on how we put all those systems together in a systems approach. So at the end of the day, what we're looking for is a longer term, holistic solution that's going to allow us to analyze and optimize our business for the effectiveness and efficiency gains that we often look forward towards within a mass rollout. So we'll just build on this slide here. So one of the first things that we need is we need really smart or smarter measures and goals and KPIs. And this is typically being done and managed within the IBM product, and it's certainly done today within the managed environment. What we're doing there is we're putting more leading KPIs using the tiles within mass to really put tangible goals, objective goals that people can work against from a process point of view, not necessarily the lagging KPIs that, can they really affect that as we move forward. And next slide, yeah. So that also means that we have to further develop the taxonomy, the hierarchy, right, to provide a deeper approach. So with any mass implementation, there's often it's the time to pause and say, do we have the right hierarchy in place? Is it deep enough to leverage reliability strategies? Is it deep enough to get the most out of the asset performance management container, which is now built within the mass ecosystem? Next, please. Yeah. And then what that allows us to do as we move forward is instead of just being able to associate a level of risk to those specific assets. It allows us to build a frame of reference, so in the future we can start to do what we call dynamic risk modeling. Now, why do we talk about dynamic risk modeling, or as opposed to that single instance, or where we've evaluated the risk or criticality associated in an asset? We know that as the business changes, we need to constantly reevaluate based on the organizational needs, based on the business needs, if that level of risk is changing based on the conditions of the equipment, based on the conditions of the economy, based on the needs of potentially what we're selling outwardly to as a result of our asset management programs. Okay, so that key area of focus is a key component of Mass Manage. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about some of the additional areas from a systems integration approach that we often have to add into the mass discussion. Right. So as we know, IBM has provided the reliability strategies, which brings the RCM component into the discussion. Now, that work there is often very much focused on the rotating equipment and the balance of plant assets. So that repository is there to pull information in so we can create far more intelligence to make better decisions within the mass ecosystem. But we may also have the ability to pull in or ingest information from legacy FMEAs and PM optimization programs. Depending on the criticality, we look at what's the right strategy to bring this level of data into the solution, that framework that's going to help us augment our decisions. So next we talk about what about all those other elements of the business. So in certain businesses we have to talk about integrity-based maintenance or mechanical integrity, your pressure vessels and your piping. Well, where does all that information come in? Because that could be a critical key safety feature of the program, and that has to be thought about, bringing that data into the system. So again, we augment that level of decision support. And then at the end of this strategy, I'll talk about the instrument and instrumentation safety criticality systems. So your safety instrumented systems, your safety instrumented levels, which also provides that level of knowledge and puts that Swiss cheese model in place so we can understand when protective systems may be at risk because there's barriers or ongoing maintenance in place, and that has to be part of that decision framework. Next, please. Okay, so what we've just described there is what we call this the strategy development phase, where we expect to extract and digitize all that information, which would typically or normally in the past be found in a disparate asset performance management system. Now we have the ability to contain and bring all that information into the mass environment. Now, again, that could be those systems exist within IBM, or as a digital integration exercise, we bring that information in from point solutions. So this is about removing those silos that we talked about. Asset optimization requires far more information coming from multiple systems, so we have all that information available. So then we can push that information into the other applications or modules of the mass environment. And we're building the model as we go here. Once we have that framework, then we can move into the manage and mobile solutions, where we can really move into proactive maintenance. We've got full asset health information, so the assets are now able to tell us when is the right time to do tasks within our typical work management system. When do we launch corrective work orders to execute against that work? And also, from a mobile perspective, what's the production information, the generation information that complements those discussions, right? Again, it's about building that broader framework of information, which allows us to really benefit from the broader mass solution, the all-encompassing solution. So that's the domain of execution. Now I want to talk about, some of those other newer features which are coming into the product, right? We've always been able to connect to and consolidate readings and events and alarms and associate work order costs and dates and events and why it happened, so we can look at, what are the sources of losses and all the rest of those good things. But what the next thing I want to talk about is, through this interconnected system, we have the ability to now code those individual events, right? And create opportunity IDs against those individual events. And why is that important? Because what we're doing is we're creating a framework of reference that we can use for the purpose of analytics, right? In the old days, we used to do reactive maintenance, and many maintenance and reliability crews were there with their golden capes on, and they would jump in and go and fix events. Now the end goal is about to predict from those events. So what we need to do is create a clean population of data, right, based on the number of events, so we can start to forecast when those assets need help. Essentially, the assets tell us are telling us when it's time to do something. But the real goal is to move further in advance and have that forward-looking view. And so by coding these events, we can start to rationalize and use statistical control to understand when these events may happen in the future, so we can get ahead of those events. Now, obviously, what I'm talking about is the monitor and health applications within the MAS suite, right? And this is where we really get into the optimization that has not been available in MAS before, right? So when I talk about coding those events and pulling those alarms from reliability solutions, it allows us to move into this path of optimization, so asset optimization. It allows us to truly start to predict, to use predictive analytics to understand how we can improve our efficiency and effectiveness of our assets. And then obviously from those events, we can also look at defect elimination and root cause analysis properly. Root cause analysis properly often means going right back to those initial failure modes, right? The contributory agents which caused those failures in the first place, and that comes out of those reliability strategies, right? The other piece that I'm going to introduce here is this has to be a circular effect where we're constantly going back and reevaluating the strategy effectiveness, right? And this is where we come back to that risk modeling. So we can understand and put the right level of risk or criticality on the assets which are causing the most grief to the organization. Now, the final piece of this puzzle is the AI piece, the artificial intelligence piece, which is built by having a complete and holistic model, right? It's very tough to predict based on information coming in unless you've got that frame of reference, right? We need to understand those individual events, those coded events that are associated with those individual contribution agents that come out of reliability strategies from all these individual point solutions, and understand how they combine to forecast when an event is going to happen. Now, this is truly predictive in nature, where once you have the ingredients, you can take that recipe and create algorithms around those independent events, so you can start to forecast with some level of confidence and define exactly when you need to put the right strategy in place to get ahead of those reactive situations. Now, what you're seeing here, this construct we're hoping that you're able to see how MAS is that all-inclusive solution that has got this framework where IBM has built us to put the full solution together, but also incorporate your disparate point solutions to bring that information into the solution. Okay. Next slide, please.
Excellent, David. Thank you very much. So what we've done there is we've introduced two important concepts. If we think of asset management as being like the macro view of the activities that an organization would undertake, and then the asset optimization piece that David has very eloquently talked us through is almost like the micro view. That's the detailed view of the process that you can implement within your organization, which is completely agnostic of any software solutions. What we'd like to talk through now is the key strategies and tools that organizations can actually utilize in order to take advantage of things such as asset management and asset optimization. So I would like to start by introducing you to the Cohesive Asset Management Development Framework. This framework is a repeatable framework supported by a number of artifacts, tools, and documentation that we can utilize with organizations in order to implement processes that could either allow you to align to the ISO standards or even to go on and proceed to become accredited against those ISO standards. So if we build this diagram up in stages, I will reiterate the fact that asset management is all about the strategies and objectives of the organization. So we would always be looking to start to understand what is the North Star that is driving your business, and therefore the asset management strategy should then be clearly aligned to that. So from a strategic level, we're typically looking to work with organizations to help improve or often create for the first time two important documents. We talk about the asset management policy, which is really the ways of working. It's the non-negotiables of how your organization approaches asset management. And then the strategic asset management plan, which we often refer to as the SAMP. Now, the strategic asset management plan rolls right through the organization, and it is a broad document or suite of documents that is there to better enable decision making within your organization. Now, this could be covering things such as your operations and maintenance management activities, your CapEx and OpEx activities, and also how you manage risk and opportunity. Now, a strategy document is only one part of the jigsaw. Planning strategy and executing strategy are two separate things. And therefore, often we will support organizations with a supporting execution plan in order to help actually roll out that strategy as it is. Coming out of that SAMP, that plan, is often one or more asset management plans. And if you remember the diagram we showed earlier, the asset management plans are associated with your asset portfolio. And that asset portfolio can both be physical assets and logical or digital assets. And therefore, your asset management plans will often reflect this. The purpose of those asset management plans is to support the asset lifecycle activities throughout the entire life cycle for your portfolio. So this is from acquisition right through to disposal. And as I say, this can cover both physical and digital assets. Now, none of this can be delivered without having competent resources that are trained in asset management practices that can execute against your plans. And therefore, the human capital or your resource pool is absolutely paramount to successful delivery for asset management. Then on the other side, we have the asset management enablers. This is often the software that is used by organizations to support the overall activities, such as Maximo, SAP, finance packages, document management systems, etc. Underpinning all of this is your data configuration and information management activities. This is absolutely paramount, and therefore we're seeing more and more now how asset information strategy is tied into physical asset management strategy. And then any good framework will always have performance evaluation improvement activities embedded into the processes. So therefore, you are on this continuous cycle of improvement, or in asset management terms, plan, do, check, act terminology. Looking at those asset management enablers in a bit more detail, you can see things such as CMMS systems, asset performance management, AIP, asset investment planning, focus improvement initiatives, and condition monitoring. And the important message is that when you are looking to perform an upgrade or a re-implementation of a solution, it doesn't matter whether that's moving to MAS or SAP. It is one part of a bigger jigsaw. And therefore, we're seeing organizations that are gaining greater benefit by implementing a good asset management strategy to support the software rather than the other way around. Strategy number 2 takes us into a bit more detail. David?
Yeah, so it's there's a saying that your culture can eat your strategy for lunch every single day. So you can have the most robust asset management strategy, but without a map on how to take that strategy down to the people level, we often see that as a major blocker in these rollouts. So one of the cohesive differentiators is we've already created those maps for you. We've defined who does what, when, and where, both in an agnostic manner for against best practice, best current practices from the IAM and GMFAM and so on and so forth. We've built in all those leading metrics so we can show those in the tiles within MAS. But we've also built in the language of Maximo Manage as well, so people can recognize what best practice looks like, but within the language in Maximo as a means to get over that hurdle or get over that delta. If you can show people, what they do, when they should do it, how they interact with the other parts of the business, and what the value of that, we find that adoption takes a whole other level, and that's why this is really important. Next slide, please, Andrew. So what we've been able to do is create 75 task-based business process maps. Again, these are already created. So this spider diagram talks about all the interconnected workflows. So what we found is 375 connected workflows. We might be a little above that now, right? Putting all those combinations together, again, so people can understand how they interact with the system and why it's important. And then you can hold people objectively accountable against a process and not subjectively against a job description. And in fact, I would suggest that the objective business processes should become their job description and you become competent against that. Now, if I take this to the next level, what we've also been able to do is create a database in order to build these process maps. So there's over 1,200 plus nodes and agents and attribution levels. Now, why is that important? Because we can actually leverage that database for generative AI agent-based modeling in the future, right? So it will be your information attached to best practice. And that's one of the difference that Cohesive brings to market. We've leveraging our many, many years of asset performance management, or even greater amount of years in enterprise asset management, combining together and putting that gray beard in a box, so to speak, right? So you don't have to recreate the wheel.
Excellent. Thank you, David. And then finally, the third strategy that we'd like to introduce to you is essentially a free upgrade evaluation that Cohesive are offering. We recognize that some of this stuff can be quite overwhelming when you see it first time round, and knowing where to start can actually be one of the biggest challenges. And therefore, at Cohesive, we've introduced an evaluation process where we can walk you through stage by stage, looking at the things that we've talked about today, as well as other challenges that may reside outside what we've discussed today. What we see with the organizations that take us up on the evaluation, they're primarily looking to reduce risk in terms of their upgrade, about whether they should move or whether they should stay, increase confidence in where that upgrade will take them, ensuring that they're ready for the move. And that's in two ways. It's ensuring that not only are you ready for MAS, but that MAS is ready for your organization. And then obviously once you get there, we can then take advantage of all of those great tools that reside within the applications. So the QR code there will allow you to link into our website where you can quickly register, and from there we can move forward in a really easy fashion. Elke, could you please present the second question for the audience? So this is quite interesting then. So how mature is your current asset management strategy, assuming that you have one? I'll give you 30 seconds to 45 seconds to answer. Yeah, so quite interesting results coming in there where we see that kind of aligned with our own learnings, which is that we're seeing organizations now becoming more aware of things such as asset management strategies, looking to develop them, but they're not yet very well established. But the first start is making sure that that awareness piece. So that's fantastic. Okay, so to round this off, then, we've talked a lot of theory. We've talked a lot about what we can do, and we always think it's important to talk about where we have done this. And therefore, we'd like to introduce you to some case studies where we've put these things into practice. So the first case study that I'd like to introduce is an organization called Energia Group. So Energia Group consists of three businesses, which is flexible generation, renewables, and customer solutions. Today, Energia supply approximately 17% of Ireland's total energy and around 21% of wind power for Ireland. To date, over €1 billion have been invested in the energy market, with a further 3 billion in renewables by 2030. This is driving the transition to a net zero carbon future and helping Ireland meet its climate action targets. The flexible generation plant, called Huntstown Power Plant, is there to generate energy that wind cannot yet meet. It's an intermittent energy source, and it supports the renewable energy generation. It's currently 2 combined cycle gas turbine plants, generating around 700, just shy of 750 megawatts of energy. On the renewable side, they're generating just over 300 megawatts, and this is wholly owned onshore across Ireland, with a total of 15 onshore sites. So Energia already had a fairly mature enterprise asset management system in place. But what they recognized was that in order to maximize the value that that system can bring, they wanted to look at the aspects outside of the software. So working with Cohesive, we deployed the Cohesive Asset Management Framework that we introduced earlier, alongside the ISO 55000 standards. And from there, we performed what we call a maturity assessment. And the maturity assessment is a discovery suite of questions where we perform desktop studies and interview stakeholders to analyze the maturity or the competency against the benchmark of the ISO asset management standards. From there, we're able to generate a maturity scale or a maturity score, which then resulted in a maturity assessment and gap analysis documentation, which then went on to make a series of recommendations. Now, those recommendations were free for Energia to then take up and do what they wished with. There was no further commitment that they had to be delivered by Cohesive or tied into us in any way. However, from the recommendations and from the way of working, Energia were really, really keen to basically move up that maturity scale for their asset management practices. And from there, we then moved into a ISO 55001 accreditation program of works. So Energia, really kind of nobly made the commitment to say, we want to not just be aligned with these standards, but we want to be accredited by these standards. And therefore, using that gap analysis as the baseline, we worked with Energia to deliver the roadmap and the implementation plan and then the execution of that implementation plan against those key parameters of leadership, alignment, and assurance to ultimately generate value in that asset management space. So looking at the points that we raised earlier, we created a strategic asset management plan with Energia. We created their asset management policy aligned with them, which was all rolled up to their strategic objectives. Coming out of that was a series of asset management plans that cover both physical and digital asset management practices. And it's a continuously evolving piece of work. And we continue to work with Energia today to really good effect. And interestingly, a lot of the objectives that we've worked in have actually then migrated or been moved into the EAM solution, but in a joined up holistic fashion to really, really good effect. David, would you like to talk us through case study 2?
Yeah, absolutely. So once we've defined that the organization has got a strategy, then we really need to dig into the weeds and understand how their current enterprise asset management aspirations support the strategy, and vice versa, obviously. So what you're seeing here is a radar chart on two different things within the radar chart. So one, the blue line is the average scores that we've generated over the last 25 years of digging into this process. Now, albeit we're in the past, we used to have to look at many different disparate systems, and now we're seeing, that homogenization where we're looking at one or two or maybe a few point solutions, and it's getting much easier. But this also includes all of the human-based actions, and what we find is many organizations, once they get to this level, they don't really know where to start, right? So I'll tell you a little bit of a story here and a little bit of a journey, right? When we overlay where the organization is good and approaching industry average, you see that in the spikes where they're almost touching those blue areas. But then there's the areas where they're weak and where they really need to focus, right? Where areas where they're not even close to that blue concentric circle. So what we found over the years is by focusing on those areas that are really weak, we can then build that homogeneous, circular maturity level. Even though it might be at a lower maturity level, once we've got a working solution, we can very quickly then expand outward and grow the business by effective cultural change management and having people understanding the technology and why it's important. And as the data streams start to come into the system, you can very quickly expand. If you have all these Herbies or hurdles in the way, often we get hung up and the process just doesn't evolve. The solutions don't get sticky and they don't grow like they should. Again, it's typically not an IT problem anymore. It's typically a human and business process problem. And that's what we're addressing here. We look at the business process, which will define where we need to act and how quickly we need to act, and involve the right people on who we need to act. That involves an assessment methodology, and also that delivers a programmatic return on investment, that waterfall of savings that we can associate directly to those activities, engagements, to allow us to move the organization forward. Thanks, Andrew.
Excellent. Thank you, David. So we're drawing to the close of the presentation now, and we just wanted to kind of give a quick conclusion as to what we discussed. So Maximo, we have outlined that Maximo application suite is a fundamental shift away from traditional enterprise asset management solutions now into this kind of holistic view of asset lifecycle management. The application suite contains some fantastic tools that organizations can utilize, but the key message that we're hoping people take away today is that it's the manner in which you look to deploy the system which is going to drive success or failure. Right? It is a very quickly advancing area of knowledge, and Cohesive have spent significant time and effort in ensuring that our colleague base are well educated with a well-rounded knowledge base of not just solutions, but also of that holistic knowledge of asset management and asset performance management to support the implementations that we make for our clients. Moving to questions. Elke, can I hand over to yourself, please?
Yes, thank you for that informative session, guys. We have some time for questions. So, the first question is to David. It sounds quite complicated to implement these strategies. Can we make it simpler?
So when you look at the bigger picture, it can look a little daunting. The reality is there's an organized approach that simplifies eating that elephant one bite at a time, and that's that structure that I showed earlier. When we've got the right asset classifications, the right asset tags in place, the hierarchies properly developed, and then we associate the reliability strategies against that. We're putting the building blocks in place systematically to ease that process. A lot of those point solutions that I talked about, you're already using them. We saw that in the chat, right? How do we bring that real-time data? So let's build that frame of reference and let's associate that real-time data coming in so the assets can tell us when we need to have an intervention in the work management body of the solution. And then, of course, once that framework is in place, then we can move into the analytics piece where we can really start to optimize our assets and then move towards that artificial intelligence by having a clean population of data to build on. Right? Eating that elephant one bite at a time, creating that structure in an organized delivery, right? Putting those foundations in place and then building at the right pace. And then making sure that your people understand how they're involved, why they're involved, and how they can help the organization grow is a critical success factor from a cultural change management piece.
Great. And then also another one directed to you. It's based on strategy 2. What's the agent?
Oh, so agent is what we use for agent-based modeling. So it's a data structure that allows us to go out and figure out the combinations of agents which are contributing to show us where we need to have an intervention or an action. So if you consider a failure mode in the reliability strategies, a simple pump motor assembly might have 27 independent failure modes that define the health of that asset. Each one of those failure modes could be an agent. Right? What we're trying to figure out is the combination of agents that contribute to asset health or life cycle costs, or when we need to change that asset. Right? That's what we mean by an agent. It's a data science term that allows us to do that level of analysis. But of course, Maximo has already built those connections for you within the mass application.
Great. And then a question to you, Andrew. What are the biggest lessons you have learned implementing mass?
In implementing mass?
Yes.
Well, yeah, so there's been quite a few lessons learned for sure. I mean, at Cohesive, we're fortunate now that we have implemented mass globally, a number of times now, in spite of the fact that there was a little bit of a kind of waiting game in the industry. So the lessons that we've definitely learned is ensuring that clients have a solid understanding of planning with the end in mind. The clients initially look to just perform a technical upgrade. And as I outlined earlier in the webinar, is that if that is what you do, then all you're going to end up with is Maximo manage in this broad suite. And you will not really be in a good position to take advantage of the other applications available. Having said that, the technical infrastructure has also been a challenge for organizations. So Cohesive have worked incredibly hard to skill up our resource base in Red Hat OpenShift technology. Also scaling down the amount of infrastructure required. So we've now got a really good handle on deploying this to single node OpenShift environments. Looking again at the functionality, the the organizations that have deployed successfully have had a solid grasp of asset management practices. They've understood what that roadmap looks like for the application suite. So it's not just about planning what happens on day one in mass, but where do they want to be in 1, 3, 5 years beyond the implementation, which often takes into consideration that entire asset management framework, not just the solution itself. The lessons learned list is long, and we're happy to share that with clients that are ready to make the leap.
And then another one to you, Andreas. Are there any trainings for system administrators for mass?
Yes, so there's two. Well, there's a multiple ways that organizations could go. So IBM Learning Platform is very good for what I would call standardized training. There is lots of badges and things like this that organizations can deliver. However, Cohesive, we have taken on board um, feedback from clients and delivered enhanced administration training to those organizations that have made the leap. For those that are looking to manage either on-prem or they want to have a very active management of their own solution rather than it being an entirely managed service. So two options there. There are plenty of free learning on the IBM platforms, but for sit-down classroom-led training, Cohesive have developed those courses.
Great. I think we have time for one more question, which is to you, David. Does FMEA part of RCM? Then how we can implement differently?
Yeah, so failure modes and effective analysis is one level below RCM analysis. So what RCM analysis is it looks at the individual failure modes that contribute to the changing of the functional requirements of the assets. Failure modes and effective analysis is more of an asset, how does it fail, right? So that capability is embedded within the technology as well. What our cohesive team has done is they've created accelerators within the product, and we would be happy to show you how we can utilize our 25 plus years of asset performance management experience in the cohesive accelerators for things like RCM strategies, for dynamic risk modeling, and for FMEA to maximize, again, what you get out of those baseline and foundational strategies that can then allow you to get the most amount of value from health and monitor within the mass application.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. With that, we can conclude our webinar. I want to again thank our speakers, David and Andrew, for joining us today, as well as you, our attendees, for listening. We have additional information available on our website in the form of blog posts, articles, case studies, and even brochures. If you want to really reach out and discuss your strategic path forward, please do so. You can also reach out via our website. That's a wrap for today's webinar. David, Andrew, thank you again, and I wish everyone a great day.